Hey guys, it's Kim and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here. It means the absolute world to me. If you have not as yet, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you can stay updated and notified for new videos and when they're coming out. If you are a returning viewer here, thank you so much for being here. And as always, if there's anything that you see in this video that you want more explanation on, that you like, please go ahead, like, comment, and let's engage in the comments below. Thank you so much for being here. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So this video today is a little bit different. I'm not going to be talking about makeup or skincare or applying anything for you guys, but I'm actually going to be sharing with you something very personal. It is my celiac disease diagnosis and journey. The month of celiac awareness, and so usually every year I take to my Instagram and I talk about my journey. I share photos. I've done that in the past where I just talk about celiac and share some data, share some things that I've learned after having celiac for over 6 years. And I thought now that I have my YouTube and I have this platform, it'd be the perfect place to kind of just share a little bit about my story, my journey, my diagnosis, and hopefully if you're someone who's struggling with celiac, or maybe you think you might have celiac, this video can be useful to you. As a small disclosure, I just want to say that I will be sharing a few photos from my diagnosis, which was almost like 6-7 years ago. This is very vulnerable, very personal for me, so please only positive comments, and if there are negative comments, I'm just going to dub you anyway. So without further ado, let's get into it. So today's video is titled all about my celiac disease, my journey, and how I came about finding out that I have celiac disease. So I'm going to take you guys on that journey with me, and we're going to go all the way back to 2017, and I am just going to basically talk about symptoms that I had, how I came about finding what doctors I went to, what tests I did, and how I live a gluten-free life. I'm also going to be dropping like definitions and some facts on the screen with text, so if there is anything that I kind of skip over, I'll make sure to just like, add a little definition so that you guys are totally aware of everything that I'm talking about. So before I jump into my journey, which starts in 2017, I'm just going to briefly read you guys a definition of what celiac disease is. And I just have it here on my laptop, so if you see me looking off screen, I'm just reading word for word what has been given to me via research and things like that. So celiac disease is defined as a long-term autoimmune disorder. It is primarily something that affects the small intestine, and it basically develops where individuals like myself have a intolerance to gluten, and gluten is presented in foods with wheat, with rye, and with barley. This only occurs to people who have the genetic gene, so you have to have gotten this from like your mom or your dad's side. It's not something that you can just like develop like randomly, and it basically, what happens is upon exposure to gluten, your immune system has like an abnormal response to it, and it produces auto antibodies that affect your organs. So that's sort of like a brief description about what it is, and I'll go ahead and like also write this on the text, so if you guys want to reference it, you guys can. As I mentioned, my diagnosis started in 2017. It was about 6 months before I turned 23, and I started to experience just like weird things. Like I was super moody. I like literally just felt depressed. I had low energy, and if you know me, it's just like not who I am. I'm very like hip, I'm very movie, I'm like a funny gal, and I just felt like I just did not feel honestly like myself. Aside from that, I also was unable to keep down any food. So I would eat, and like an hour or two later I would throw up, or I would have to use the bathroom like uncontrollably, which I know is like TMI, but that's just honestly what was happening to me. And that went on for about 2 or 3 months, just all the time. Like I would be at work, I would be like driving to work, I would have to pull over and throw up. I would be out with my friends shopping, and I would have to like run out of a store and throw up in front of the store, and that literally happened to me. And at first I thought I was pregnant. I was like, oh, okay, well, let me take a pregnancy test. So I took a bunch of those. Obviously I was not pregnant. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to change up my diet. Maybe I have like IBS, or I was just kind of like trying to figure out what it was because I personally have never heard of celiac, and I didn't even know that that was a disease and that could happen to me. And so I kind of just dealt with the fact that I was randomly throwing up. And I know when I think about it now, I'm just kind of like, damn, like it's weird how I normalized that for myself. Aside from throwing up, the moods, going to the bathroom uncontrollably, my stomach also had like I had abdominal tension. So my stomach was just like really bloated and hard all the time. And so when that started happening, I actually got a little panicked and I was like, okay, well, this is obviously not normal and something is going on. Aside from that, I was also dropping weight rapidly fast. Obviously, I was throwing up and using the bathroom a lot, and I was not keeping any food down. And so at the start of this, I was 135 pounds, and by the time I got diagnosed, I was 115 pounds. And I'm gonna like drop a picture here so you guys can see this was me right after I got diagnosed, probably like 2 weeks after I got diagnosed. And I don't really have a lot of pictures from that time because I was really struggling and it was just something that I wasn't doing. I wasn't taking photos of myself regularly. So essentially, after 6 months of that, and when I recognized that my weight was dropping, actually, my mom, she basically was like, Kim, you need to go to a doctor. Like, you don't look okay. I looked just sick in the face, sick in the body. And at that point, I remember even the morning of my birthday, I went to the ER and I was just like, something is not right with me. I'm consistently throwing up. I can't keep any food down. These are my symptoms. Like, my stomach is bloated all the time. And they did a bunch of tests on me and they told me that nothing was wrong and that I needed to change my diet. And I remember feeling just so distraught and so alone because I knew that something was wrong and I just could not receive the help that I needed. And so I decided to actually go see my physician and, was just like, I can tell her what's going on. Maybe she can give me some advice, as she should. So I make an appointment. I go to my physician. She does like a regular checkup, weight, blood pressure, all that stuff. And she started to ask me like, hey, how are you feeling? Are you depressed? And she started basically giving me like an exam about my mental health. And I realized that she was asking me certain questions like, are you harming yourself? Are you sleeping? Or this and that. And I was just like, wait, what's going on here? And she was like, well, I'm looking at your chart and you've lost 35 pounds since the last time I saw you, which I had recently saw her that year. And she was like, are you trying to lose weight? Because I didn't need to lose weight. So it was kind of shocking to her. And I was like, no, actually, this is why I came. And I've been experiencing these symptoms, blah, blah, blah. And I explained to her everything that I was feeling. And she essentially then was like, okay, I think you need to go see a gastroenterologist. And she sent me right downstairs. It was, she had an office building. And she sent me right downstairs. And a week later, I did a endoscopy and a colonoscopy. Which again, I'll like write what those things are here. But a colonoscopy is basically when they shove a camera in your rectum to check your colon, and endoscopy is when they take a small camera and they look into the upper intestines, your throat, your esophagus, things like that, to sort of see what was going on. And so I did both of those, and I remember I did it, it was great. I went to sleep, woke up, the procedure was done. There wasn't anything crazy about it. The only thing that was kind of annoying was that I couldn't eat for 24 hours. And I also had to do a cleansing with Miralax. So you basically have to clean out your entire colon. So I just remember feeling so faint, so hungry, and just so over everything. And I was just like, get this shit done with so that I can move on with my life. I did that. I also did a stool sample, which if you've ever had to do that, it is the most disgusting thing ever. And at this point, I was just like, there has to be an answer, right? Like something has to give. And so I did that. And about a week and a half later, I got a call from the gastro. And he's like, hey, I need you to come in. We got your results back and I need to talk to you. And I think it's best that we do it in person. So if you've ever received any kind of phone call from a physician, a doctor about test, and that's the way that they they call you, your mind immediately goes to a dark place. You immediately start feeling like it's the worst thing possible. I remember just crying so much because I was like, I know I'm sick and I'm just so afraid of what it is. And it was really hard. So I went back to the doctor and he sat me down and he was like, hey, I just want to let you know everything in your colon looks great. My stomach had a lot of erosions. I was, throwing up consistently for 6 months. He also told me that my pancreas was basically malnourished, and that it was not providing any nourishment to my body. And so I had to go on pancreatic medication so that, it could start working properly and, do its job. And then he told me that I had celiac disease. And I remember being like, what the fuck? Like, what the heck is that? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what is this? Like, what do you mean by disease? And, I'm a human. As soon as I heard the word disease, I started freaking out, hysterically crying. And I'm like, am I going to be okay? Is something wrong with me? Like, I literally asked him if I was going to live because I just didn't know what anything was. And I felt just so kind of confused about everything that was happening. And so he sat me down and he explained what it was, and that basically it was an immune response to wheat, gluten, rye, and barley. And he was like, you're going to have to change your entire diet. You have to live a gluten-free diet. And I was like, is this an allergy? Like, is this something that I can like take a pill with and like be fine? He was like, absolutely not. This is not an allergy. Like, your body cannot even break this down. Like, he told me essentially, he was like, it's like you drinking detergent. Like, you cannot ever put this in your system, or your symptoms will come back and you will continue to get sick and you will have long-term illnesses, if you do not live a gluten-free life. And so I remember just feeling also kind of like, what, because first of all, I'm West Indian, so everything I eat had wheat in it. Dumplings, bakes, like roti. Like, I grew up eating all of this stuff all the time. And he actually asked me, he was like, have you ever had any other experiences like this? Like, any other gastro experiences? And I had to think about it. And I was like, actually, when I was about 2 or 3 years old, my family and I were from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we lived there till I was about 7. When I was about 2 or 3 years old, and I only knew the story like later on in my life because my mom and my aunts would like tease me about it and stuff like that. But I essentially had the abdominal tension. So randomly one day my stomach just got really bloated and really hard. And I'll try to look for a picture so I can put it in here. But just imagine a baby with a hard, bloated stomach. And they did not know what to do. I mean, they tried all remedies, all things, and I could not use the bathroom. I was in so much pain, and I was also a kid, so I was just a small toddler, and I really couldn't explain what was going on with me. And so they flew me out to Barbados, and my mom was also a young mom, and she wasn't really sure what they did to me in the hospital. They gave me some relief so that I could use the bathroom, and then the abdominal tension went away. And so she thought it was just sort of like a one-off thing, but he actually told me, he was like, that could have been what symptoms occurring even as a young child. And he's like, it makes sense that no one would have known what it was because celiac disease is something that is still now being researched. It's literally an up and coming disease. It's something that a lot of people are now figuring out they have. It's also one of the hardest things to diagnose. Only like 1% of the population has it. Like 1 in 100 people are developing it. And so he kind of like explained all this information to me, and I was like, okay, well, what is next? Like, how do I get better? Because I'm 115 pounds. I literally feel like I'm not even alive on the inside. Like, I need to eat food. Like, I need to know what I can and cannot eat. And so after that, I went to see a dietitian, and she basically just explained to me like what I couldn't eat, what I should eat, what I should be eating to kind of re-nourish myself, which just included a strong plant-based diet, like eating like eggs, eating avocados, eating like lots of vegetables, lots of fruits. She encouraged me to eat meat like I normally would, like fish and steak and chicken. Obviously staying away from any fried foods, any glutinous foods. And she was like, within a month you'll feel better once you follow this diet. And I did. I just did what she told me to do, and I felt better after a month. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me was going to get diagnosed, because I could not imagine living life like that for longer than the 6 months that I did. And if you're someone who is like struggling with any of these symptoms, or you feel like even one of these things you can relate to, one of these symptoms, whether it's the bloating, the fogginess of the brain, like the throwing up, the using the bathroom uncontrollably, the bloating, like anything of that sort, just go to a gastroenterologist and see someone about it, because you just don't know what it can be. And if I hadn't seen that doctor, and if I didn't become diagnosed and follow a dietitian plan and really taking care of myself, I could have really screwed myself over. I could have impacted my organs. I could have, people get cancer from this, people get MS. Like, it could have just gotten so much worse. So I'm so grateful that I listened to my mom and I went to see a doctor when I did. And I'm also really grateful for my family who, like I mentioned, I'm West Indian, and if you're from any sort of like cultured place, you know that illnesses and sicknesses, a lot of people, not like they don't believe in them, but it's hard to explain and for people to take them seriously unless it's like cancer. And so having to explain to my family, like, okay, well, I can't eat anything with wheat. I can't eat this. I can't eat bread, baked goods, fried foods, like anything that I was sort of normally eating. I could not eat that unless it was made with like a different flour, like almond flour, coconut flour, rice flour, and things like that. So I really have to thank my family, because even till this day, when I'm visiting them, they make sure that I have like gluten-free pasta. They make sure that I have my gluten-free bread. They're only making meals that like I can eat, and they eat them with me. And my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, we had just started living together. He literally took such good care of me, like revamped our entire kitchen so that nothing was in there that was glutinous. Would only cook gluten-free meals. Until this day, we really both live a gluten-free lifestyle. We learned how to make like all the baked goods that I loved, like chocolate chip cookies, cake, carrot cake, anything that I loved. We learned how to make it gluten-free. And he was just such a positive impact for me, because I really did feel kind of alone, and he just made it like normal. He was like, okay, well, this is how we're eating now. And it was absolutely great. And so that's kind of like my journey. That's how I got to where I am today. I am super healthy. I go for annual endoscopies just to, make sure that everything is great on, in my stomach, and that everything is healed. Or, if I by accident inhaled gluten, ate gluten somehow, which that has happened to me over the years, I kind of do these checkups just to make sure that I'm okay. And I've been gluten-free for 7 years. So if you or anyone that you love is experiencing any of these symptoms, I definitely encourage you to go see your doctor, go see a gastroenterologist, go see someone about it, because it could be nothing, or it could be something that's life-changing, and you won't know until you get it figured out. I'm also going to drop some brands and link them in the comments below for breads that I love, bread brands that I love, like gluten-free pizzas that I found, flours that I like to use. I'm also going to drop names of some restaurants here in New York City that I absolutely love going to. And if you guys want to know more about celiac disease, I'm also going to link the celiac info, the website that I go to, and a Instagram that I follow that kind of talks more about celiac and more about research that's happening with celiac, and it gives kind of like updates about what's going on. So I'm going to drop all of that in the comments. If you guys want to do a little bit more research, want to look into it, that you are free to do so. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, this was a very trying time for me. And I think now, especially because the gluten-free became sort of like a dietitian fad and a trend, it was actually really hard for me to go to restaurants and explain to waiters. Now it's so much better, but I remember like 5 years ago, I would go to a restaurant and I'd be like, hey, like, asking questions about the menu, and I'd be like, well, I can't eat this, and they'll be like, oh, are you gluten-free? And I'd be like, yeah, I have celiac. And that's something that I always had to rebuttal with and say, because people would say like they're on a gluten-free diet, and like, when you go to a restaurant and you tell a waiter that you cannot eat gluten, they have to prepare everything differently in their kitchen, right? So they have to like make sure that nothing that I'm being fed has gluten in it. And so I guess like people were going to restaurants and saying that, but then eating the bread off the table, or saying they're gluten free and then ordering like a fried dish. And I can understand why that would be upsetting for restaurants, but it has gotten so much better. I went on a cruise recently with Royal Caribbean, and it was absolutely amazing. They had gluten free everything. Everything that was on the menu, they were able to make it gluten free for me. French onion soup, pizzas, pastas, like literally anything that you can think of. And it was absolutely amazing. And I remember being on the cruise and I actually like shed a little baby tear because I was like, wow, like 6, 7 years ago, this, I don't even know if this even existed. And so the entire gluten-free situation, celiac disease, it's come a long way. And I just thought it was really important to share this story and to talk about how it affected me and how I'm sort of living through it, to this day. And, if I could just help one person, or if one person sees this and they feel the way that I felt, or, can somehow relate to what I went through, then I feel like this video has done its job. And yeah, that is it. That is my celiac journey. And if you guys, as I mentioned, if you guys want any more information, anything like that, drop it in the comments below. I would love to have a conversation about this. I will also love to start showing you guys how we make our gluten-free meals here at our house. And so if you guys are interested in any recipes and things like that, let me know. I enjoy making baked goods, and my husband is like a little chef, so we really enjoy cooking and eating good food, and I would love to share that with you guys as well. So let me know. And again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening to the story and listening to my journey. And if you made it to the end of this video, extra love to you. And if you're someone who is battling with celiac disease, or if someone that you love or know is battling with celiac disease, please be patient. You will be okay. And with a gluten-free diet, you will be totally fine. Just take it day by day and follow a dietitian plan, and you got this. You'll be all right. We're gonna stick in this together. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and bye.